Everyone loves a happy ending, but nothing beats a finale with a twist. From the classics to the latest blockbusters, here are some of cinema's best and least expected endings. Obvious spoiler alert for the following movies. Movies often use twist endings to reshape our understanding of the character's past, but Arrival couldn't possibly settle for anything so simple. As Louise Banks' grasp of time is reshaped by her contact with the film's alien life forms, it turns out that her flashbacks of life with her daughter, who died from an illness at 12 years old, are actually flash forwards. Unlocking the alien's language is causing her to experience glimpses into the future. In a twist so dizzying it takes a moment to hit home, we realize that Louise doesn't even have a daughter yet. Louise's discovery that past, present, and future are one and the same is what helps her convince the Chinese military to work with other countries to piece together the aliens' message, thereby bringing about world peace. After that, the aliens leave, their mission to broaden mankind's horizons accomplished, and then comes the real kicker.
If you could see your whole life from start to finish, would you change things?
After physicist Ian Donnelly confesses his feelings for her, Louise chooses to pursue a relationship with him, knowing that they'll have a daughter together, that she'll die at 12, and that Donnelly might one day find out that she knew it would happen. Freed from the anxieties of linear time, Louise takes the love, the happiness, and the inevitable grief all together as part of life, and welcomes her future daughter for the brief time that she'll have her. What makes the ending of The Power of the Dog so brilliant is that it never seems like it even has room for a twist. We know that rancher Phil Burbank is attracted to Peter, the eccentric son of his new sister-in-law Rose, and the film teases out a fraught, ambiguous dynamic between Phil and Peter, one in which the attraction seems more and more to be mutual. Later, the cut Phil got on his hand while trying to catch a rabbit leads to a severe infection, which causes Phil to slip into delirium and desperation before dying. His death is ruled to have been caused by anthrax, a common enough ailment among ranchers, but his brother George is puzzled. After all, Phil was a rigorous man, and he made a point of not touching diseased cattle. It's only in the movie's final moments that we see Peter tuck a finished lasso under his bed with gloves on, revealing that he deliberately brought over an infected hide for himself and Phil to plate, knowing that it would infect and kill Phil. It turns out that Phil underestimated Peter, and so did we. The whole time, he was just feigning attraction to get closer to Phil and put an end to his reign of terror over Rose. In 1974's Chinatown, Private Eye Jake Gittes unravels a conspiracy surrounding the death of an engineer named Hollis amid the ongoing water wars in 1930s Los Angeles. Eventually, he learns that Catherine, the young woman who is supposedly having an affair with Hollis, is the sister and daughter of Hollis's widow, Evelyn. Catherine was born from Evelyn's abuse at the hand of her own father, Noah, who had Hollis killed when he found out about Noah's plans to consolidate the water monopoly. Jake hastily arranges for Evelyn and Catherine to flee to Mexico, but it's too little too late. Noah forces Jake at gunpoint to take him to their meeting spot in Chinatown, where the police are waiting to arrest him. During the ensuing showdown, Noah tries to claim Catherine. Evelyn shoots him in the arm and tries to take Catherine away, and the police finally shoot Evelyn dead. Noah escapes scot-free and subsequently becomes Catherine's caretaker. It's a tragic and blunt ending for these characters, one that's genuinely hard to process, and it's capped off with one of the most infamous and gutting lines in Hollywood history.
Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Jake, of course, can never forget what he's just seen, and neither can we. The 2014 Austrian hit Goodnight Mommy is a truly messed up horror movie. It follows a woman who undergoes cosmetic plastic surgery and returns to her isolated lakeside home wearing facial bandages, which, combined with her strangely aggressive behavior, leads her twin sons Elias and Lucas to believe she's an imposter, and so they tie her to the bed and torture her into revealing whether she's their real mother or not. Later, after a failed escape attempt, the mother pleads desperately with Elias to free her, but only to Elias. It's finally revealed that Lucas actually died in an accident before the start of the movie, and that he's being hallucinated by his guilt-ridden brother. The mother tries to soothe her son's conscience, but he's too far gone. Reasoning that she would be able to see Lucas if she was really their mother, Elias burns down the house, killing himself and his mother. It's a real 1-2 of a gut punch, one that's all the more powerful thanks to that narrative rug pull. Don't Look Now draws a lot of its power from the thin line between the ordinary and the supernatural, as English couple John and Laura attempt to deal with the accidental death of their young daughter Christine. But the film's shocking final sequence erases that line entirely. Everything falls apart after Laura returns to England, leaving John alone in Venice. For much of the film, John has been having visions of a mysterious figure in a red coat, just like the one Christine was wearing on the day she died. And while John has attempted to take a rational approach to the strange goings-on in the city, he eventually comes to believe that this figure may just be Christine after all. So one night, he follows the figure again and finally corners it. But the truth is more shocking and horrifying than John could possibly have imagined. Wait. John has no time to react, of course, and this mysterious killer leaves him for dead in the Venetian night. Even among the ultra-gory, boundary-pushing films of the new French extremity movement, High Tension is particularly relentless. Structured as a minimalist, non-stop fight for survival, this 2003 movie seemingly follows best friends Marie and Alex as they struggle to escape the serial killer who killed Alex's entire family. In the film's final minutes, however, Alex reacts with uncharacteristic fear to Marie's presence. During a cutaway to the ongoing police investigation, we learn that the killer pursuing them is a figment of Marie's imagination. In truth, she's the real killer, and she's been hallucinating her efforts to rescue Alex, while in fact being the one who kidnapped her. Eventually, Alex manages to free herself from Marie's truck and runs into the woods as Marie pursues her wielding a concrete saw. An extremely bloody fight breaks out, and Alex is finally able to incapacitate Marie with a crowbar to the chest. While certainly shocking, the twist itself is actually kind of hokey and far-fetched. But High Tension layers in so much gore in those final minutes that it manages to achieve a stunning ending almost by brute force, to say nothing of the ending's blatantly homophobic undertones, which are shocking in an entirely different way. During the climax of the 1996 legal thriller Primal Fear, Chicago defense attorney Martin Vale calls defendant Aaron Stampler to the stand and successfully triggers his aggressive second personality Roy.
Marty, I am walking out of here now slow.
It's a big, rousing moment that finds Vale successfully demonstrating to the jury that Aaron has dissociative identity disorder, meaning that he wasn't himself when he killed an archbishop named Rushman. As intended, Vale's gambit leads to a bench trial in which Aaron is deemed not guilty by reason of insanity, and the mystery is apparently solved. Rushman's abuse created Roy, a violent personality through which Aaron could fight back, and Aaron killed Rushman while Roy was in control. Except that's not what happened at all. In the film's final scene, Aaron accidentally reveals to Vale that he remembers attacking prosecutor Janet Venable during the trial, an act supposedly carried out by Roy. It's at this point that Vale realizes the truth.
There never was an Aaron counselor.
Roy is the real version of the man, and he's been faking dissociative identity disorder all along. In truth, he feels no remorse about killing either Rushman or his missing girlfriend Linda, but by now it's too late for Vale to do anything about it. All he's left with is the aftershock of this revelation. The ending of Ben Wheatley's underrated horror movie Kill List is pure, unmitigated cosmic horror. Shock number 1. Although the MP seems to be the third and final target of Jay and Gal's grueling 3-part hit job, their watch over his mansion is interrupted by a human sacrifice ceremony in the woods. Jay opens fire on the ceremony with an assault rifle, but never gets around to killing the MP. Shock number 2. The surviving cult members seize Gal and disembowel him alive, forcing Jay to put him out of his misery. Jay returns to his cottage where he and his wife Shell find that the cult has them surrounded. Shell fights him off, but Jay is knocked unconscious. Jay then awakens in the woods where the cultists strip him, cover his face with a mask, and force him into a knife fight against a cloaked and masked assailant dubbed the Hunchback. Shock number 3, Jay beats the Hunchback in a bloody fight and then finds out that the Hunchback is actually Shell with their son strapped to her back. Final shock. As Shell bleeds to death along with her son, she begins to laugh. The masked cult members turn out to be people seen previously in Jay's life. As a baffled Jay is crowned victor, they erupt into applause. All of this, of course, begs a single critical question. What the hell? What is Rosebud? That may be the single most iconic question in movie history, and it's this mystery that lies at the very heart of Citizen Kane. What makes the question's answer so clever, though, is its simplicity. After exhausting every possible explanation for why Kane muttered Rosebud on his deathbed, reporter Jerry Thompson resigns himself to never knowing the whole truth. For the audience, however, it's a different story. As the staff of Kane's estate throws several of his belongings into a furnace, the camera focuses on his childhood sled, the one he was riding joyfully in the snow right before being taken away from his home in Colorado. And you'll never guess what that sled was called.
Rosebud.
Rosebud is a symbol of lost innocence, Kane's lost sense of self, and the fulfillment he was never able to find even with all that money and power. It's a perfect reveal for such a densely wrought character study of hubris and loneliness. Obviously, this is also a hugely famous twist, too, and today it's been parodied so often that pretty much everyone knows about it. Back in 1941, though, that single word printed across a sled hit viewers harder than any jump scare ever would. Memento is by far the twistiest film of Christopher Nolan's career, with new reveals emerging what feels like every few minutes. Naturally, though, the biggest surprise is saved for last, when we finally arrive at the beginning of amnesiac Leonard Shelby's story. Once we're there, a few things become clear. Firstly, we learn that Leonard already found and killed John G., one of the supposed killers of his wife Catherine, a year earlier. Secondly, John G. is actually Jimmy Grant's, a drug dealer who had nothing to do with the attack. On top of that, Catherine survived the attack. And on top of that, Leonard himself accidentally killed Catherine by administering too many insulin shots due to his amnesia, repressing the memory by mentally reconfiguring it into something that happened to one of his insurance clients. And then there's the finishing touch. Leonard actually found this out, and he still planted notes to manipulate his future self into continuing the pursuit of Catherine's killer, as a means of giving his life a sense of purpose. You've heard of endings that change the whole movie, but Memento may just be the first film with a movie transforming beginning. 28 Years Later is making waves as a gripping and affecting follow-up to the seminal zombie horror movie 28 Days Later. But despite the film's largely positive reception, its ending has already become a matter of controversy. Not so much for what happens, but for how it happens. Essentially, the young boy Spike meets a gang of lost boys-like survivalists styled after the late Jimmy Savile, the British TV personality now best known for his historic sex crimes. The gang's clothes, fried blonde hairstyles, and over-the-top demeanor come as a jarring break from the serious tone of the preceding movie. In 5 seconds flat, 28 Years Later shifts from dour horror to action-adventure mode, reminiscent of Saturday morning kids shows. It's all supposed to be setting up the upcoming 2026 sequel, 28 Years Later: The Bone Temple. In the context of the first movie alone, though, the choice is an interesting one, to say the very least. Bryan Singer's neo-noir classic The Usual Suspects follows the interrogation of seemingly helpless Roger Verbal Kint, one of only 2 survivors of a devastating fire on a ship docked at the port of Los Angeles. Kevin Spacey's character spins the detectives and viewers a long and twisted tale of drugs, deceit, and death, explaining that everything comes back to a mysterious mob boss by the name of Kaiser Sose. The twist? Kint was Kaiser Sose all along, which the officers realize only a few moments too late. As Kint exits the police station and shuffles off down the street, his awkward gait starts to straighten out, and we realize we've been had. Quentin Tarantino's gleefully inaccurate take on the World War II thriller was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, with Christoph Waltz taking home the Oscar for his portrayal of the film's unforgettable villain, Hans Landa. Inglourious Basterds follows Lieutenant Aldo the Apache Rain and his bastards as they go on the hunt for Nazi scalps, finally machine-gunning Hitler himself, although Landa is the one German who Rain cannot kill.
Ooh, that's a bingo!
After striking a deal with the top brass, the notorious villain is afforded his freedom in the States, though Aldo doesn't let him slide that easily. With the film all but wrapped up, Lieutenant Rain pulls out his knife and proceeds to carve a swastika into Landa's forehead in a shockingly gory close-up. Loosely based on French author Pierre Boulle's 1963 novel La Planète des Singes, 1968's Planet of the Apes was included in Empire's Greatest Movies of All Time list and contains one of the most iconic examples of a twist ending. Astronaut George Taylor, played by Charlton Heston, leads a group of astronauts stranded on a strange and seemingly deserted planet after their spaceship crash lands there. But the crew soon come to realize that they are not alone. Apes with human-like intelligence dominate this world, and they don't take kindly to the arrival of their otherworldly guests, though it ultimately turns out Taylor and his team are far from alien. As he escapes the apes and makes his way along the shoreline, he comes across the sandy remains of the Statue of Liberty and discovers he's been on Earth the whole time, trapped in a future devastated by nuclear war. Orphan follows a couple trying to move on with their lives after the death of their unborn child. In an attempt to save their marriage, the pair decide to go ahead with their plans for a third child, adopting a quiet 9-year-old Russian girl named Esther. At least they're led to believe she's 9. In truth, Esther is a 33-year-old woman named Lena Klammer, a psychopath with a growth disorder who spent the majority of her life posing as a pigtailed child and being repeatedly adopted. Why does she need to keep finding new families? Because she keeps trying to get it on with the dads. Audiences watch in sheer horror as Esther sets about seducing her new father and finally kills him when he refuses her. The first Star Wars sequel picked up 3 years after the destruction of the Death Star. Luke Skywalker and the Rebel Assault Squadron bearing down on the superweapon's weak spot remains a memorable enough finale for that first film, but it pales in comparison to the closing stages of The Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo being frozen alive in carbonite and carted off was a shock for fans of the dashing pilot, though the real jaw-dropper comes when Luke arrives at Cloud City, spurred on by a premonition of Han and Leia in pain. The young Jedi falls right into Vader's trap, losing his hand during the lightsaber battle that ensues. In a moment that would be quoted, referenced, and parodied countless times over the years that followed, Vader makes cinema's most notorious parental declaration.
No, I am am the father.
David Fincher's gory thriller Seven is crammed full of shocking moments, but one scene in particular sticks long in the memory: the film's haunting finale. After veteran detective William Somerset and his new partner David Mills finally manage to corner the killer, they discover a box containing the head of Mills's pregnant wife Tracy. Despite it being exactly what the killer wants, the heartbroken detective guns down the skin-headed madman in a heartbreaking climax that, unlike many of the movie's other scenes, doesn't need to rely on gore to be shocking. A loose remake of 2002 Hong Kong crime thriller Infernal Affairs, Martin Scorsese's Best Picture winner The Departed moves the action out of Asia and brings it to Boston, home of notorious Irish mob boss Whitey Bulger, the inspiration behind Jack Nicholson's character Frank Costello. The veteran gangster relies on his police mole Colin Sullivan to stay ahead of the game, though he doesn't realize he also has a double agent in his ranks, Billy Costigan. But after finally exposing Sullivan, Costigan is unceremoniously shot in the head by another of Costello's moles. Even more unexpected to audiences, however, was the double blow which followed. Staff Sergeant Dignam showing up right at the final moment to put a bullet in Sullivan's temple. Another Scorsese-DiCaprio collaboration with an unexpected ending, psychological thriller Shutter Island follows U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels and his new partner Chuck. They visit Ashcliffe Hospital for the criminally insane to investigate the disappearance of a woman incarcerated there for drowning her children. Scorsese delivers a gripping mystery that leads viewers down a winding path with a stunning end. Just as Teddy believes he's about to solve the puzzle of the missing woman, he discovers that his real name is Andrew Latis, and he's actually a patient at the hospital, sent there for killing his wife, who had previously killed their children. The whole investigation was actually a ruse by the head of the facility, designed as a last-ditch effort to snap Latis out of his conspiracy-obsessed insanity. Based on the life and travels of American hiker Christopher McCandless, Sean Penn's Into the Wild is a biographical survival film that spends 148 minutes building up to a happy ending that never comes. The audience gets to know McCandless as he lives in complete isolation in the Alaskan wilderness, intercut with scenes depicting the long road he took to get there. As the film draws to an end, McCandless begins to realize that true happiness can only be shared with others and plans to return home to his family. But the river he crossed 4 months earlier has become impassable. On the point of starvation, the young backpacker is forced to gather roots and plants to eat, accidentally consuming a poisonous one in the process. The film ends with McCandless crawling into his sleeping bag to die. Writer-director Steven Chbosky wasn't just aiming to make another teen-centric indie flick when he decided to adapt his own novel, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, for the big screen. He also wanted to make his story, which tackled mental health issues among young people, a more communal experience, in the hope of reaching more of those affected by its themes. The film itself is very well acted by its leads, though it's hard to put your finger on what was so good about their performances when all you can think about is the ending. By the end of the movie, troubled protagonist Charlie has been through the ringer and is about to finally get the girl. But when she touches his leg, he has a flashback of his late Aunt Helen. The film comes to a grim close with Charlie admitting to a psychiatrist that he's been repressing memories of the sexual abuse he suffered from his aunt. Frank Darabont's adaptation of the Stephen King novella The Mist caused controversy before it was even released, after the director chose to go with a different ending from the book. King fans were put at ease when the author gave his approval of the changes, though only a man who has spent a lifetime delving into the bleak could ever claim to have enjoyed it. The film follows a group of people trapped in a supermarket by a deadly mist full of tentacled creatures. In the end, protagonist David and his young son manage to escape in a car, though when they run out of gas, David is forced to use his remaining 4 bullets on his child and passengers. After shooting them all, he steps out of the car to accept his gruesome fate at the hands of the monsters, only for the mist to clear and the US Army to appear. If there's one director known for his mastery of the twist ending, it's M. Night Shyamalan, a man who enjoys nothing more than lulling his audience into a false sense of security, only to flip the world he's created on its head. He did it to great effect in 2000's Unbreakable and 2004's The Village, but his most famous shock ending came in his first major success, The Sixth Sense.
I see dead people.
The story follows a kid named Cole as he tries to talk through his ability to see ghosts with a troubled child psychologist. Unless you've been living under a rock, of course, you'll know that Willis's character was actually dead the whole time. And when the film first came out, news of its shocking finale spread like wildfire. Arguably, it was the power of that twist which helped this small-scale supernatural horror bag 6 Oscar nominations, and a staggering worldwide box office total of $673 million. One of the first filmmakers to truly understand the art of the twist, Alfred Hitchcock's particular brand of suspense earned him a well-deserved reputation as the master of suspense, something he delivered consistently over a distinguished 5-decade career. Perhaps his most famous shock ending is the one he conceived for Psycho, the story of Norman Bates and his family's motel. While Janet Leigh being slashed in the shower is undoubtedly the movie's best-known scene, the most shocking moment of all comes in the closing stage. We finally realize Norman's mother has been dead all along, and he's been committing murders dressed in her clothing. Hitchcock went to great lengths to keep the twist a secret, swearing the cast and crew to an oath of secrecy and imploring the public to keep quiet about Bates via the film's advertisements. For those out of the loop, Fight Club follows Ed Norton's unnamed protagonist, an insomniac working a job he hates to buy things he doesn't need.
Insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy.
After his apartment is blown to pieces in an explosion, he moves into a rundown house with Brad Pitt's Tyler Durden, his opposite in every way. Cool, focused, and ready to tear the world down. But what begins as an unlikely friendship gradually escalates into a bitter rivalry, and eventually a pretty heated butting of heads. To make a long story short, the two start a fight club to help men express themselves and relieve their stress. But it quickly morphs into a full-blown anti-capitalist terrorist cell. By the time Norton's character realizes that he and Durden are the same person, it's too late to stop the plan they've put in place. The movie ends with the destruction of the city's financial district, wiping out everyone's debt. In case you slept through 2017, here's the gist of Jordan Peele's super popular, ultra-profitable Get Out. When Chris, a young black man, meets the parents of his white girlfriend Rose for the first time, we come to realize that something isn't quite right with her family. After Chris meets a peculiar black guest at the family's garden party,
Get out! Yo! Yeah! Yo, chill, man. Get out! Chill!
Viewers are led to believe that the protagonist is about to be brainwashed into some kind of modern-day slavery, but the final reveal is even more mind-blowing. It turns out that Chris is in the clutches of the Order of Coagula, a cult that transplants the brains of old rich white people into the bodies of young black people.
I want your eye, man. I want those things you see through.
Unlike those that came before him, Chris manages to escape this awful fate, stuffing his ears with cotton to avoid being hypnotized. He fights his way outside and is ultimately rescued by his best friend Rod. This wasn't the original ending, however. Peele also shot a version in which the cops show up instead of Rod, and an innocent Chris is jailed for killing his kidnappers. The final installment of a trilogy M. Night Shyamalan began with 2000's Unbreakable. Glass reunites Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson's characters, David Dunn, aka the Overseer, and Elijah Price, better known as Mr. Glass. Both are banged up in a psychiatric ward alongside James McAvoy's Kevin Wendell Crumb, aka the Horde from 2016's Split, a man suffering from an extreme case of dissociative identity disorder. All three are under the care of Dr. Ellie Staple, a psychiatrist who specializes in patients who have become convinced that they have superhuman abilities. Staple spends the majority of the film attempting to convince the men that they're delusional, and she's pretty convincing. At times, against our better judgment, we believe her.
You've convinced yourselves you have extraordinary gifts, like something out of a comic book. I am here to discuss the possibility that you are mistaken.
Of course she's wrong. It transpires that Staple is part of a secret society that's been actively repressing superpowered people for years. Price is killed by the Beast, and Staple's men murdered Dunn and Crumb. There's one final twist, however. Price hacked the institution's security cameras. Footage of Dunn and Crumb's superpowered showdown is leaked to the public, revealing the existence of superhumans to the world.